Hey, have you heard the word? It's a word you haven't heard in a while, and that is stagflation. It is back in the news. And the big question I think that I want to address is, what does stagflation mean for the Bay Area real estate market? So I'm like 54 years old right now, so I remember stagflation from the 1970s and early 1980s, and I don't remember it being a particularly joyous time in the Bay Area. And so I think a lot of people are concerned with what stagflation might mean, or if in fact stagflation is even going to come. So that's what I want to talk about today. So one question you may have is, what exactly is stagflation? And I think maybe the best way to answer that is to explain what causes stagflation. And the first thing that causes stagflation is high inflation. And we don't have inflation that is anywhere near as high as it was in the 1970s and 1980s, but still inflation is higher than where the Federal Reserve would like it to be, and it is actually increasing. And when we have an increasing inflation environment, that can lead to stagflation. Another thing causing stagflation is rising interest rates. So we are seeing the cost of borrowing increase, and that is going to put a chilling effect on the economy, generally speaking. When they want to juice the economy, they look to bring down the cost of borrowing, which oftentimes happens when the economy gets weaker. When the economy weakens, we usually see that borrowing costs go down because there is less of a demand for money. But in stagflation, we see higher borrowing costs, which is the opposite of what normally happens in a time of a weakening economy. Now, what is driving borrowing costs higher? And when I say borrowing costs, what I mean is, look at the 10-year Treasury bond yield rate. And that rate had been down to almost about 3.8%, but now it has shot up again to about 4.3%, and it may go higher. And one question is, why is it that the bond yield rate is spiking? Again, normally during times of uncertainty, money floods into the bond market, and that drops the bond yield rate down. And what we're seeing instead is the opposite. We are seeing money leaving the bond market, which is causing the yield rate to spike, which means that we are having higher borrowing costs even at a time when the economy is weakening. And that's not all that's weakening. What is also weakening is the US dollar. We are seeing the value of the dollar drop against foreign currencies. And again, this is also uncommon when we have a weakening global economy, because usually the global economy moves their money into the dollar because it's seen as a safe haven. But now we are seeing the dollar weakening, and that is increasing the borrowing costs. It's forcing the bond yield rate up, and it's also increasing the cost of imported goods. So in short, stagflation is seen as a combination of increasing inflation, increasing borrowing costs, and increasing unemployment all at the same time. We don't yet have the increasing unemployment, but that may be right around the corner. Now, a lot of people, and you know who you are, they would love for the Federal Reserve to step in and save the day by lowering mortgage rates. Unfortunately, the Fed doesn't really feel they have the room to do that because, again, inflation is increasing, and the Fed has two main jobs. One is to keep inflation down, and one is to keep unemployment down. And right now, the Federal Reserve just feels they have no room to maneuver. Unfortunately, the Federal Reserve really has very little room to maneuver because inflation is so high. But when it comes to the real estate market, the Fed rate really has nothing to do with mortgage rates. That's because mortgage rates are driven largely by the yield on the 10-year Treasury. On the other hand, cuts to the federal funds rate would reduce the cost of some other forms of borrowing, like it's supposed to drop credit card interest rates and car loans and shorter term loans like that. And in so doing, it would theoretically stimulate the economy. Unfortunately, the Fed thinks they just don't have the room to maneuver right now. Hey, before I go any further, would you do me a favor? Would you mash that subscribe button right there and subscribe to my channel? And don't forget to click that little bell to make sure that you get a notification every time I put up a brand new fun fact-filled video, kind of like this one. So yes, when it comes to real estate mortgage rates, we are seeing that they are right now pretty darn elevated. They're up around 7%. And I keep on hearing mortgage people saying, oh, we're going to see rates in the low sixes, or we're going to see rates in the fives by the end of the year. I don't believe it. And the reason why I don't believe it is because they've been saying that for a very long time now. And usually when rates go up, they fall down very, very slowly. So I don't really expect that we're going to see any substantial decrease in mortgage rates, especially when the bond yield rate basically is going up right now. And it's going up again because of all of the uncertainty around the United States, especially when it comes to our tariff policy. The money just doesn't know what to do. The money is always looking for a safe haven. And right now, the United States is not looking like that safe haven. So we're seeing money exiting the bond market. And we don't know exactly who's selling all these bonds. Is it China? Is it Japan? Is it the, large mutual funds in the United States? That is actually unclear, I think, who is doing all the selling. But it is a fact that money is moving out of the bond market, and that is pushing up the yield rate, and that is pushing up mortgage rates, and there really is no relief in sight. And at the same time, we are seeing a drop in consumer confidence. In April of 2025, the University of Michigan's Consumer Confidence Survey showed that consumer confidence dropped to 50.8. This is the lowest reading since June of 2022. Consumer confidence is correlated with real estate prices. That is a lagging indicator. So when you see a drop in consumer confidence, you might expect to see lower real estate prices in the next 6 to 9 to 12 months. So in terms of stagflation, what does that look like in terms of the actual Bay Area real estate market? So the last time we had stagflation was basically from like 1972 to like 1983. It was like the lost decade, I think is what they call it. And what actually happened to Bay Area real estate prices during that time? Well, good news, bad news. The good news is that Bay Area real estate prices did increase dramatically during the time of stagflation. So that was good. They shot right on up because actually real estate prices usually do shoot up when there is a lot of inflation. Real estate is seen as a good hedge against inflation. It's a way to retain wealth over the long term. So actually, we did see a significant increase in real estate prices in the Bay Area during that time. Unfortunately, when you look at the inflation-adjusted real estate prices in the United States, we see that actually that was really a lost decade because real prices adjusted for inflation were lower in 1983, which is when it is deemed that the period of stagflation ended, than in 1972. So real home prices in the United States were higher in 1972 than 11 years later in 1983. So while it looks like prices are going up, and that's good, and that you're not going to lose like a tremendous amount of value because the real value only dropped by 10 or 15% adjusted for inflation, one thing that really happens, though, is the market slows down. There are fewer home sales, and it takes longer to sell a home. You're not going to have as very fun a home selling experience in a weak, stagflated real estate market like we had throughout most of the 1970s and the early 1980s. It's a much more enjoyable experience to sell your home when you have a strong seller's market, a strong economy with a lot of buyers who feel that they have plenty of cash to put down because the stock market portfolio is doing very well. That's not what we really have right now today. The market right now in the Silicon Valley and the Bay Area is still very strong, but there are a lot of indicators, chief among them the specter of the return of stagflation, that point to less robust and, dare I say, less frothy days ahead for the Silicon Valley and Bay Area real estate market. So if you are someone who owns a home in the Bay Area or Silicon Valley and you're thinking about selling it in the next 1 or 2 or 3 years, I don't think you necessarily have to worry that the real value of your home is going to drop substantially. But at the same time, I don't think that is going to be any great increase in your home value in the near term, especially not in terms of real price increases after we are adjusted for inflation. And if you are thinking about buying a home and you're waiting for a huge price crash, that may happen, it may not happen. Real estate prices fluctuate all the time. But if you are going to be buying a home, know that buying a home always works best as a long-term investment. So you should not plan on holding it, I don't think, for 2, 3, 4, even 5 years. If you're buying a home today, I strongly suggest that you plan on holding onto that home for at least the next 10 years. All right, well, that is all I have for this video. I hope you did enjoy watching it and that you got something out of it. And if you did, I'm guessing, just a guess, that you might also enjoy some of these videos over here. These are some of the most popular videos here on my YouTube channel, so please do take a look. All right, that's all I have for this one. Thank you so very much for watching, and please stay tuned.